Welcome to Brightly Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we share soul-driven advice and topics that help you live more brightly in mind, body, and spirit. Through sharing our experiences, friendship, and passions, we hope to impact you to step more brightly into yourself.
Hi, Amy.
Hello, Tracy.
How are you? It's really good to see you.
It is good to see you as well. It's been a while for us, actually, in real time since we have seen each other. I feel like both of us have come off of some hard times, harder times than typical. And
here we are.
Yes, here we are. We are showing up. Exactly. We are showing up. Last time we talked about grief and how the stages of grief are not linear or even cyclical. I think you described it as a scribble, which I loved. And then the other thing we touched on was the fact, like, our need for closure. And I think I even said to you, why do we need closure? And we were both talking. The funny thing is it wasn't until I was listening to the show again that I went, oh, we need closure because as human beings, we love storytelling. And storytelling has a definite beginning, middle, and an end that actually makes sense and has been built from the beginning. It's not just an abrupt end that makes no sense. So, I mean, it has to make sense. And this is why we need that closure. And closure just kind of completes the whole cycle.
And I think in order to let go and start something new, it feels better when whatever's behind you is complete. It feels done.
Absolutely. I feel like if it's not done, you keep going back to it. And it's like, it's almost the new things that you want to start never really take hold, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just start constantly going, I'm going to start this. Oh, wait, what about that thing that doesn't feel complete?
Well, or it could be some subconscious where old emotions are coming up as you're trying to get into the new, and you don't know why you don't feel joy. You don't know why you're having a hard time raising your energy and your vibration up to match these, big picture ideas and goals and things that you're trying to do in life, because you don't notice you have an anchor tied to you.
Oh my gosh, an anchor tied to you. 100%. I love that. And now I see this image of this anchor tied to me.
Would it feel more complete then if you were to start picturing taking an axe to the rope? Hopefully it's a rope and not a chain, but like right? getting rid of we're on an old timey pirate ship, not a Navy vessel. I'm thinking of my
old-timey pirate ship
with the nylon rope here. We're completely able to take our hatchet and cut that anchor off. If your image is of like
acetylene torch.
Yeah. If you're picturing like the anchor on the Titanic, we got some other stuff to help you work through later. Maybe listen to episodes 1 through 37.
Well, not 1, 2 through 37.
1 was practice.
Yeah. So right now we're coming to another part of the wheel of the year, which is something you can always rely on, is time moving on, right? And the interesting thing about this time of year, we're coming up to the autumn equinox, otherwise known as Mabon. So it's the second harvest festival, but it is a time of balance. So it's a time of daylight being the same length of time as night, as the darkness. And so with that balance, of course, what happens then is right afterwards, we pop into more darkness. So, and we know that Tracy thrives in more darkness.
I'm feeling it already, Amy. I'm feeling more creative, more willing to do things, more willing to journal.
I love that. So when you say you're more willing to journal, when you're journaling, you you doing reflecting, or are you just like downloading ideas and writing them out? How does that look for you?
I think this time of year is more reflecting. Not that I don't have ideas,
Yeah.
but I think it's more the spring equinox when I'm starting to birth ideas or feeling ready to like write things down. So at least, I mean, and I'm in the northern hemisphere. For the southern hemisphere, you're going through the opposite. You're going through spring right now, right? I'm pretty
Right.
sure our Spotify data says everybody's north of the equator, so we should be okay. If any Aussies are listening, please email us. I'll give it at the end of the show, and I will make sure we include you in future episodes. But yeah, I feel like when we have all this light, it feels like, not that I'm being watched, like I'm not paranoid, but it just feels like a spotlight on you, right? And so it's more, I'm only willing to do and put down and print the things that I'm ready to share with the world, as you know, it's both subconscious and conscious. Whereas this time of the
Okay.
year, it's like, no, curtains are drawn, candles are lit, and this is my me time. And
Yeah, no,
it's
I
like,
like that. I think more people could benefit from actually allowing themselves that time for me time, reflection, maybe asking themselves questions that they've never asked themselves before. Yeah, I don't know.
how about
It's
you? Do
so,
you notice any changes in how you like to, I don't, in your meditation schedule and how you interact with yourself or
yeah.
others, your own personal reflection?
Yeah, I think I am the same as you. I think that you just verbalized it so well that this time is the reflecting time, and the spring is the actual when those seeds, those ideas actually come out.
Mhm.
And I like to think that I do that as well, but I don't think I've been um as self-aware to know what but I'll say that today I had way more ideas when I was journaling than reflections.
Well, you got that
So
last
I'm not
minute
sure.
dump to do, right? Like it's
Well, yeah,
not, I
that's
mean,
true.
we've had
We're
meteorological fall, which is September 1st here. But this is, like you
mhm.
said, this is the cosmos, the stars, the balance, the amount of light we have.
Yes, yes. And just so everyone knows, we're talking it's like September 21st through the 24th. This year it actually falls on, I believe, the 22nd. And like I said, night and day equal each other. But then the days get shorter and shorter. Uh I think too today it was kind of funny because I was thinking about this. I went out to my garden today and I thought the cucumbers were done. And lo and behold, there were some, it was like a second harvest for the cucumbers. So
Wow.
I was super excited about it, ridiculously excited. I was like, second harvest of the cucumbers.
Well, and that's what
And
I
then
love
I
about this
gifted
this time
some
of the
and
year is because it seems all like, sometimes when we talk about stuff like this, it might turn off some people who don't lean towards the more magical, mystical, but this is actually, like you said, it's harvest festival. These were created by our
mhm.
ancestors who needed to live and harvest by the amount of light we had in the day, right? Like this time of year,
True.
not only the amount of light that they had to harvest, but the weather is changing, the type of crops you can have, and what you have to prepare for before winter comes. It was a major moment. And
Mhm.
so they were celebrating this time, way back,
Yeah.
they were, thanking the gods for, what they gave and asking them to help them get through winter. And then it just became like, hey, we're just celebrating, like it's a party, like the year is done. We're transitioning to this next cycle. And then now
Mhm.
we get to treat it like more of the internalized individualistic side of it, right? Because we're not farmers.
Mhm.
I mean, you have your own personal crops you're tending to.
Yeah, look
I've
at me.
had
I'm like,
this
now
year.
wait a minute, just talk. Yeah, you speak for yourself, Tracy. I like to think I'm a little mini farmer.
There you go, your retirement plan. But then we can
Yeah.
also do the community side of it, where it's a fun time to start having bonfires this year, especially after this
Yes.
insanely hot and warm summer season that we've had. And so this wheel of
Yes.
the year is just kind of a representation, of what is going on around us, right? Like that you can
Yeah.
physically see outside how the plants are changing, how people's behavior is changing. And I just
Right. And
I
this
like to
time of
market.
year, yes, I love to market now. didn't in the past. And now I'm much more aware of just like marking the seasons, marking the different times of the year. And so I just want to just like loop back to completing things and the completion, because when we think about the autumn equinox, we are coming to a completion of summer. Obviously, we're, the swimsuits are being put away. Kids are now starting school. They've completed their time off. We're probably putting away, some of us might be putting away our white shorts, things like that. So it is a completion time. And I do want to talk about that. And I'm wondering, are you completing anything right now? Are you working on completion of something?
Am I? So, well, yes. So I think I mentioned in our last episode about grief that I had or was awaiting a back surgery for a bulging disc. I don't know why I like to be like, it's just a minor back surgery, but I'm okay. I can walk. But so that has since happened. It was part of why we, recorded some of our things. And so what I feel, or I hope I'm coming to the completion of, is healing. And it's requiring a lot of patience. I got some disappointing news about how long recovery actually is for this surgery, that my expectations were not well managed in advance, and I don't want this to happen again, so I am going to err on the side of caution. But so I hope to come out of this a new person, in a sense, right? Like a little bit more patient, a little bit healthier, that hopefully that this the what do I want to say? So my physicality is really limited, and that I'm just hoping that instead of me looking at it that way as all these new limitations, that I figure out during this time what I'm meant to be doing or getting, in other areas, right? And so yeah, so completing that. And then this is hard for me because I just, as we shared in our routine episode, I just started another season for my school year. I'm very, very forward focused. So I'm trying to prepare and think about what this season will be like in my home and how I can prepare given my back. So how I can be a good steward to my home and prepare for the coming fall and winter. But yeah, and then
you shared something with me about if you don't complete something and move on to something new, what sometimes can happen. Do you look at you? You're looking like, wait, what did I
was
say?
That today?
Yes, it
was. What did brilliant. I say?
So what you said was sometimes it can be your subconscious mind. You don't even realize that you haven't finished something, and it can be you start something new, but then your subconscious mind is like, why am I having these feelings? Yeah.
Yeah. You mean what I shared during the introduction on air? Yeah. Like 5 minutes ago.
Yes, that. So does that happen to you?
Oh, definitely. And I think I don't want to get too far ahead, but our next episode will kind of cover that a little bit more in depth too. But yeah, I'm hoping that just personally I'm completing a cycle. That's just what it's been feeling like for the past year or two, that just like I had a birthday over our break, and so I'm in my early late 30s. As a former colleague and I, we created a grid.
Late 30s.
I said he was in his mid 30s one day, and he took offense to that, and we had like early 30s all the way to late 30s, and so I am in my early late 30s now, which I'm excited about. I'm not somebody like I hope to age gracefully, but I feel like I have this cycle that I'm hopefully completing. And we've talked about it a little bit in the past. Sometimes we go through emotional cycles, and sometimes it's just, even behavioral cycles and relationship cycles. And that the more you heal, the faster you go through them. So you might be repeating certain experiences or feelings over and over again, but it's not taking you as long to get through them. So I kind of feel like I'm at the tail end of that. But it's not, I don't know if that's as concrete of an answer as what you were going for. I just glanced at our notes.
No,
What are you completing?
yeah, no, I think that's great. And I love it that you talk about completing a cycle, sort of this personal cycle for yourself. I think that we all need to be more self-aware about completing our own cycles, but it's very concrete. Well, one thing is very concrete. I am really, really, really working on completing this book that, if I talk about it one more time, my husband's head is going to pop off. But what has for me typically happened is I start a book, I have a great idea, and I start writing a book. It's not reading a book, folks. It's writing a book. I can finish reading a book super great. Writing a book is another thing. So I start writing a book, great idea. And then all of a sudden I get a shiny, bright new idea. And I put that book aside and I start the new book. Well, and then that goes for a while. And then I get another shiny, bright new idea and I start another book. So now I'm thinking maybe if I can finish one book, I could finish multiple books one at a time. And then I could actually be a book writer. So that's one thing. The other thing is I am cleaning my office where I used to office out of at the administrative
the location.
area.
Yeah.
Yep. So I am completing cleaning that office out. And that definitely feels like a personal and professional cycle for me, that once that happens, it will be the completion of something.
And it solidifies what has been an awkward and ambiguous
yes
15-month journey, right?
It really does. You know, and I was talking to a colleague the other day, and they were talking about their own feelings about cleaning their office. And then they said that it was going to give them a chance to reprioritize their life because they were no longer working from that office. And I thought, what a wonderful opportunity to take the completion of something as then sort of the jumping off point to reprioritize your life. And of course, like, I'm sure I'm completing other things as well, but those were just like two big things. Well, my garden, but like we know today, I had a second harvest of cucumbers.
I mean, that's going to end whether you participate in it or not, right?
Right.
So, okay, I want to go back though. So first, you know, what your colleague said about reprioritizing your life, has that inspired you to reprioritize anything in yours?
Yeah, believe me, when they said that, it was like a ding, 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 ding went off in my head. And I was like, ooh, reprioritizing. And I think there's always sort of that backstory or low level thing of like, let's reprioritize something, but nothing ever, I don't actually do it. I mean, sometimes I've done it. So I am consciously thinking about that. And that's actually what I felt this morning was like, what would that look like? Right. There's been a lot of changes. And what would it look like to reprioritize things? I don't know. Does it make you think of anything?
I'm a Virgo. I am always reprioritizing my life, evaluating goals. I need to work more on that action piece of the SMART goals and the doing than I need to think about reflecting anymore. So with that, you know, when you're talking about your journey of, you are a book writer, you're just not a published book writer. You haven't finished a book, but that doesn't mean you're not writing.
Thank you for that.
You're still an author, even if nobody reads it. But with that, it made me think about, like, does completing something motivate you to start a new thing? And with that, it sounds like you kind of have a backlog of things that you want to do. And so, like, I just picture like refrigerators at convenience stores that when you take a soda bottle out, another one, like they all just get pushed forward.
Yeah.
So do you find that inspiring or motivating, or are you and our listeners more like me? And that's just absolutely terrifying, or it makes me want to like lean in and grab one from the middle. No, not you, second in line. I'm not ready for you yet.
That is so interesting. I
Is
hadn't
it
thought about
first in,
that.
first out? Is it like food when you're putting stuff away in a
No, I
pantry?
don't think it is. I don't think it is, because I think that we are not those refrigerators, right? We're human beings. And so when I accomplish this thing, I get to choose the next thing that I want to start
Okay, I
as a
love
new
that.
beginning.
Because it also, that Ben Bergeron quote, I think I say in every other episode, that happiness does not lie on the other side of achievement. And so I'm wondering, do you view completion and achievement as two separate things?
Oh, sure. I think I do. I think I do.
Me
But I
too.
feel like yeah, good. I feel like there's something with this book completing it. And hopefully it's not like, it happens and then I'm just like, oh, my life means nothing now. I don't think that will happen, because I have too many things that mean something in my life. But the completion of this book means more than just the completion of the book, right? It means I can actually get something, I can finish something. And that to me means something. I consider the act of writing any day that I get writing done an achievement. So
I like that.
I consider getting an idea in my head an achievement.
Right? So I'm glad you shared that, because for me, when you mentioned earlier that this is about writing a book and not reading a book, completion to me too, and I think that's part of the cycle that I'm going through right now, is acknowledging what no longer serves you and ending it.
Yes.
That
And I feel
that's
like
part
we
of it.
talk about that. Yes.
Yeah, so instead of, completing a cycle doesn't necessarily mean beginning, middle, end. It's not necessarily this full circle and you have to go through all the steps. Sometimes you can
Mm-hmm.
jump through to the end. Sometimes you have to, for
Mm-hmm.
me, it wasn't until about 10, 15 years ago, and I mean, I'm in my mid 20s, where I realized life is too short to read bad books. I don't know where I
Right?
got it in, where did I get it in my head that I had to finish every book that I started? Such a waste of time, because
No,
then I just
no.
stopped
I
reading,
know.
right?
I had it too. I had it too. And then finally, I had the same epiphany that it was like, oh, I can stop reading this book. You can stop having that relationship. You can stop putting all your time and effort into this thing that is not paying you back
Yeah.
anything.
Sometimes completion is acknowledging what's no longer working for you and being
I
okay with
love
that.
that. Yes. Yes. Now, that is its own completion, right? That is its own completion. You acknowledging you're done with something because it's your choice, it's your completion. Um, I did want to talk about, I kind of love the song Closing Time,
Minnesota
Semisonic.
band, local band.
Honestly, yes, I do. And the writer is Dan Wilson. So just in case you can't remember it, Closing Time. I won't sing it. I won't do that to you.
If we don't have the
Closing
rights.
Time. Yeah. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. So you do have to have a beginning in order to have an end, and you have to have an end to have a new beginning. And it does have to be an end that either you've decided or there is a cycle that's been completed. Otherwise, it'll, that subconscious mind, like you talked about, Tracy, at the beginning, you're supposed to, all of a sudden you're having emotions and it's like, why can't I do this thing? What's happening?
So
Yeah.
sometimes we reach completion and it's not our choice.
Right.
So sometimes our jobs lay us off, let us go. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
relationships were the ones somebody is letting go. How
Mm-hmm.
how do you maintain enthusiasm, motivation, or energy for a new beginning when you didn't end the last journey?
Whew. Yeah. That's a tough one, because I feel like there's a few different ways. We did do an episode specifically on releasing and letting go, episode 13.
Look at you
And
ready.
a lot of it, yeah, a lot of it was on like releasing what no longer serves you. But like you just said, if it's someone else's decision,
I mean, it
I
still may no
think
longer
that,
serve you. It most likely doesn't, right? But you're
well,
not
right. If it
the
doesn't,
precipitator
yeah,
of change or the end.
exactly. So I was going to bring up celebrating the end of something under a different context, but I feel like even if it wasn't your decision, there is a way to honor what was and celebrate, or at least define the end of it and mark it somehow. Whether it's writing it on a piece of paper and burning it, or um, journaling, self-reflection. You could also do some kind of a meditation where you're literally like cutting the cord to it. Do you have like, what do you have about helping yourself release something that wasn't your idea for it to end?
So, and I haven't always done this. This is more of a newer thing, but I think it goes back to what we talked about in episode 37, grief. Is to me the opposite of kind of celebrating is grieving. And I think you should hold space for both. That if you allow yourself to grieve well and you're really releasing it, that then you can kind of celebrate at least the new beginnings or the new opportunities, if not celebrating and releasing the end. So
Yeah.
I think the best way to prepare for those types of things, like you're not going to be able to have a plan for every terrible thing that happens in your life. I know a lot of people like to ruminate on those things, and especially when things are going really, really well, they like to think about all the ways in which it can end and not go well, instead of just living in the present moment and celebrating the good, whether it's an ending or not.
Yeah.
And so I think the best way, instead of using your mental power and getting too far in the future, is to work on your mindset. And that if everything this podcast has ever been about, are taking care of yourself and investing in yourself, and have a mindset that's supportive of your needs, and like you said, is intuitive and self-aware, that when these things happen, it shouldn't knock you down to the bottom rung of the ladder, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not chutes and ladders, right? You're not all of a sudden starting at the beginning and completely rebuilding. That you can see that, like, yes, there's been a loss, or yes, things are different, but you can also then see the paths ahead of you.
Yeah.
And but I love what you're saying though about the things that we do know, right? Like you are intentionally trying to complete this book that you have been working on for a really long time, that you have put effort in, and that you want to birth into the world, despite all these ideas trying to come in a little too fast for you. And so I love the idea of also looking, instead of looking forward and thinking of everything that could go wrong that could create endings to the life you love, but like looking forward at, where do I get to celebrate these milestones and these markers, and where are cycles of completion actually coming? So one thing that comes to
Yeah.
mind for me, especially this time of year, when teenagers become adults and move out of their home, whether to go to college or just start their next beginning, they're usually really, really excited about it, maybe anxious and trepidatious, but like still looking forward at their beginning. Whereas a lot of parents get empty nester syndrome and don't know what to do with their life.
Yes.
And I feel like we all knew that day was coming, right? Like you said, nothing
It's not a surprise.
bigger, they're getting smarter, they're applying for school. And so I think there are little things we can do to both celebrate and grieve and set us up for success for those moments, right? That there are certain cycles
Yeah.
of our life that we're familiar with that we can look forward to.
I like that. And I'm so glad you brought up the grieving aspect of it. That sometimes you have to grieve things before you can start something new. I would say that so often as a society, we don't allow ourselves completion of a cycle or closure of a cycle. And that instead of like honoring it and marking it or grieving it, we just rush headlong into something else to fill that space, to fill that grief. And so we never actually get to honor the end. And it's the same thing like you said. So you could be in the middle of something new and then you're just like, all of a sudden you're on your nose, right? But I do think that we don't spend enough time and we don't have enough closure. And so I guess what I'm getting at is give yourself the space, give yourself time to either celebrate something, grieve something, honor the end of something before you start something new.
And, you know, we have celebrations in our lives where we already do this. So I was just thinking of weddings. We have bachelor and bachelorette parties, right? Like we get all of our friends together and we celebrate, you know, before we enter this next stage of life, right?
Yeah.
And then there are some people who, for female presenting bodies, that, you know, some girls start their periods and they're just handed their products and like told to figure it out, right? They don't really get walked out. There are some cultures and some families and some women who they celebrate welcome to your moon time.
Yes.
And it's like a celebration thing.
Yes, Tracy, I just finished the red tent for the second time. It had been years since I had read it.
More.
Okay. So basically it's the red tent, and it is biblical times before the Bible was written. However, it is Jacob and Rachel and Leah and the women in the tribe. The new moon, they go into the red tent, all of them together, and they get 3 days of just me time in the red tent together. And when a girl starts her menses, she is brought into the red tent. She has henna put on her hands. She has fragrant oil massaged into her. She has all the women around her just celebrating her entrance into womanhood and the end of her being a child.
Yes. And what I also like about, you know, this new what do I want to say? This new, like, I don't know if it's social media or just a shift in mindset, but people are now celebrating aging and aging gracefully in a way that I didn't see around me before. Yeah. Whereas before it was over the hill and like these black streamer parties for 40, which 40 ain't old, right? Like all these posts of like, wow, you look great for your age, sis. And it's like, no, media lied to you. 40-year-olds have always looked great at their age, right? But so there's this new thing of, you know, so we were just talking about, you know, a young girl ending childhood and becoming a woman. But then when you're a woman, there are different life stages, and men have these too, but I just don't happen to remember what they call their stages. But so it's maiden, mother, crone, right? And so you know, some people will go straight from maiden to crone, right? Or there are aspects of mother that's not necessarily birthing a child, but just moving from the maiden stage into a more nurturing stage. But celebrating moving from mother to crone, I feel like is something that in the past was done in secret. You know, menopause was never talked about. It was the change, you know, and all these things. And now it's like, woohoo! Like I'm done with all that BS. So I'm a maiden.
Honestly, I want to share that for someone who is much younger than I am. You are the person who helped me start celebrating my own crone aspect, because I was like, no, I'm not a crone.
You're a badass crone. What are you talking about?
So see, well, no, but see, that's just it. And I believe that you said, oh, I'm gonna love it 100% when I am, you know, transforming into a crone. And then I was like, what are you talking about? And then you just like, you know, did a Tracy riff on why a crone was awesome. And then I was, wait a minute, this is great. And I feel like I got in my head a seed from whatever, the word crone, how it has this bad connotation.
Yeah, you think of like a hook-nosed, warty fairy tale witch. Yeah, no, that's not a crone.
Yes,
no,
you do. No, and it was my daughter who said, Mom, crone used to be crown as well. It was known as crown as well. And the crone of the gosh town or whatever was like the wise woman, right?
Yes.
So you
Fully
actually
embracing their
helped
power
me
and their
step into it.
experience. Oh, I
Yes.
love that. I'm so glad. Well, and
Yes.
isn't
Thank
it
you.
funny how words transform in societies and cultures and how it impacts people, and how it's actually the younger generations helping the older generations take it
Yeah.
back, right? Because one word that I learned recently, virgin, doesn't mean pure or untouched or not having sex. It means unto oneself, that they are not owned by anyone else. And so
Oh,
maiden,
Tracy, I just got full body chills.
right? And so a
I love
maiden,
it.
we typically picture as unmarried, unwed, virginal, but she's a woman unto herself because she doesn't have a child to take care of, and you typically don't have a husband to
Right.
take care of. You are unto yourself, right? And then mother doesn't just mean like birthing and nurturing a child. It could be, you're at that stage of your career, right? Like where you're birthing and nurturing ideas and other people in your life and other women and
Yeah.
things like that. And then crone is just like, it's not that you're no longer the maiden or the mother, those are still in you. And like your daughter said, now you're exalted, right? Like now you are
Right.
a leader. But so all of those things, as exciting as they are, something has to complete before it. And so there is
That's
like
true.
that grief or celebration of the ending of, and like
Yeah.
acknowledging in you, like even if you're taking back the word and even if it means something better, you're still you are being pushed into another stage of your lifespan, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes we get to do that at a natural progression, and sometimes our health or finances or something pushes us into that without our
Right.
say. And so having a better understanding
Yeah.
of yourself and why you think certain things. So like you even said, like you're able to acknowledge like that's not actually how I feel about this. A seed was put in my brain and I want to take it out. I am no longer nurturing and watering
Yeah.
this seed. Um, yeah.
Yes. And I think, I mean, clearly it's not anything like this when someone finally sort of like makes a light bulb go on above your head. You do take it in, but I feel like sometimes I have to keep reminding myself this, right? It's not like it's integrated immediately. It's a process to integrate that into my psyche, that crone is cool.
But so, and we were talking at the start of this, with Mabon, there are just those literal cycles of the year where you can probably tell if you're
Yeah.
watching the video of this, our rooms are getting darker. The sun, it's not even 6:30 where we
Yeah.
are, it's barely 6:30 and the sun has started to set. But you
Yes.
have your own personal cycles too. Some may match up
Mhm.
with these grander cycles that we all are experiencing, but we're all going to have our different cycles and in different areas of our life. And so if you're aware of the different areas of your life and where you are in that cycle of it, you can be better prepared for something when it comes to completion, regardless of the reason, right? Like you can, I kept asking I have a sibling who was turning 40 this year, and I kept asking her, how did she want to celebrate? And she really didn't, right? Like she wanted to be celebrated as her birthday, but she came up with her own little thing that she wanted to do instead. And I was
Mhm.
like, man, am I being like the literal crown me a crone? Like I remember the over the hill parties as a kid and I hated it because the person being celebrated hated it, right?
Right.
I have people in my life about to turn 40 and I'm trying to figure out a way to celebrate it in a way that honors how they feel about it, but then also kind of maybe injects a little bit more enthusiasm into like, you're done with this being a child 2030s bullshit stuff that we go
Mhm.
through in life these days. Like this is an exciting
Mhm.
time. So I don't know. I like the idea of thinking of this
Yeah.
season as completion
Well,
and what are we completing in our own lives or what do we want to complete?
yeah. Yeah, I like it too. And I think that that's what happens. I feel like with our shows is it actually gets us thinking about it more. And then we're like, oh yeah, hey, this is cool. I'm going to
Come
start
on
doing
this journey with
this.
us. We
Yeah.
know not, but we'll
Yes, we
laugh the
are
whole way with
literally,
you.
yeah. We are literally on the journey with you, right?
Well, I feel like the
So
universe is helping support that. So did it have anything it
it
wanted to
is.
say?
Yes. Well, you're so funny, Tracy. She acts like I pulled it. I was going to do
You were
a
here.
tarot card, and then Tracy said, "Wait a minute, we always do the goddess cards for the
Oh,
cycles
yes.
of the year." So, yes, goddess guidance oracle cards.
By
So,
Doreen Virtue.
today, exactly. Today, we got Butterfly Maiden, which is all about transformation. And the quote is, "You are experiencing enormous change right now, which brings great blessings." And isn't that beautiful? Because I think so often when we think of change, we don't think of blessings, we think of stress. So I
Oh,
love
yeah.
that.
There's a quote, we only like the change we initiate ourselves. It's
Yes,
a Stephen
exactly.
Covey
But
quote. Yep.
sometimes, exactly, but we are not in control all the time. So a Hopi Native
Ever. You're
American
never in
spirit,
control.
right? And so this helps ensure the crops yield healthy and bountiful. So I love that because this is the second of 3 harvests. My garden can attest to that. Um, what's funny is that it also talks about don't be concerned with about endings, because the endings bring in new beginnings, or is bringing in new for you. However, I think what we still want you to be aware of the endings and give them the space they deserve. um yeah, so what about,
And
and
look
then
to
I think,
endings you want, right? I think that's kind of how we actually started, was
yes,
like, what endings are you either anticipating or looking forward to, or do you want to create? Like for you want to be done with the writing cycle so that you can move on to the signing books and the bookstore cycle, right? Like,
I do, yes, yes, I do want to be done with that. So what about next time? What's up for next time?
so as with most things we talk about, we really, I mean, we plan this stuff a little bit, but I had no idea. We take turns with who's going to take point on different topics. And so I had no idea until just prior to recording that the Mabon episode was going to be about completion. My next episode is going to be on, or our next episode, episode 38, will be on destruction, on endings and beginnings, but in a little different way. So earlier this year, when we were discussing possible topics for the show, we did an oracle card pull of several of these cards to kind of like illustrate the arc of conversation and the journey we wanted to go on throughout this year, right? So we planned out around the summer solstice, we planned out the last half of the year.
Mhm.
When we got back together to kind of start talking about we're going to be recording soon, I couldn't remember why we resonated with this one so much. But we had pulled Kali. She's a Hindu goddess. She's one of the first to come out. And she really spoke to both of us with Mabon and the seasons changing. And we thought this would be a great time to discuss endings and beginnings and allowing natural cycles in our life. And so, yeah, on this card, it says the old must be released so that the new can enter. So, where you were talking about endings as completion of cycles, I'm going back to those endings that I brought up earlier, where like, what do you want to let go of? What's that book you don't want to
Yeah.
read anymore? What's the book you don't want to write anymore, right? Like, what is dead in your life, or what are you ready to destroy? Not let blow up and implode. Like, this is going to be an intentional destruction here. But so just kind of talking
Mhm.
more about those endings and beginnings in that sense. So although Kali was the inspiration for the show, it won't actually be on her, but just some of the themes that she represents as written in the Goddess Guidance Oracle deck. So as much as I love learning about
Mhm.
this goddess, and I absolutely love her, I am not the right person to be educating others on her, but I hope that sometime in a future show we can have a guest on that can, or maybe you do a little bit more research. So not
Yeah,
about Kali, but
cool.
inspired by her and the themes she represents.
Yeah. So destruction. I'm actually looking forward to this a lot because I feel like it right now, destroying something. Okay, well, everyone, if this episode spoke to your soul, please share it with a friend. And if you have time, give us some love on your preferred platform with a rate, review, and subscribe. You can also reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast, or via email at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
And with that, we hope you have a bright and beautiful day.